Ibrahim Traoré silences Kemi Badenoch after she dismisses Nigeria. His words left her stunned and speechless. It was a confrontation no one expected, and one that would send shockwaves across Africa and beyond. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, took direct aim at Kemi Badenoch, leader of the UK Conservative Party and a woman of Nigerian heritage, after she made inflammatory comments during a speech in London. With a smirk on her face and pride in her voice, Badenoch told a crowd, "I am not Nigerian. I was born in the UK. I serve the UK. My home is England." Then, with a dismissive wave, she added, "People keep asking about my roots. I tell them, I left Nigeria behind. It's a poor, backward country. We must stop romanticizing it." That clip exploded across African social media like wildfire. From Lagos to Accra, from Kano to Kinshasa, outrage spread with fury. But no reaction was more fierce, or more unforgettable, than the one from Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Within 24 hours, his spokesperson made it clear. Traoré had personally requested a private call with Kemi Badenoch. No advisors, no handlers, just leader to leader. When the line connected, Badenoch greeted him lightly. "Ah, President of Burkina Faso, this is quite a surprise." But Traoré's voice was sharp and cold. "Don't worry, I'm not calling as a politician. I'm calling as an African." Then came the silence, and what followed would go down as one of the most powerful rebukes in modern African political memory. Traoré began recounting her own story. "Your mother was 8 months pregnant in Lagos when she boarded a flight to London, just before Margaret Thatcher moved to cut off birthright citizenship. You were born in Wimbledon, just in time." Badenoch said nothing. Traoré continued. "After that, you were sent back to Nigeria. You grew up in Lagos, went to school there, ate jollof on the street. You were a teenage Nigerian girl, even if you now pretend not to be." His tone grew firmer. "So when you call Nigeria backward, you're not just insulting your own blood. You're mocking the millions who struggle every day to build something from nothing, with far less privilege than you ever had." Badenoch tried to interrupt. "I didn't choose that. I was taken there." Traoré shot back. "No, but you chose to erase it, and that's worse." The entire 12-minute call leaked within hours. Burkina Faso state media released the full transcript. African social platforms erupted. #Traoré spoke for us trended across West Africa. On TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, the audio played on loop. African pride surged. British media scrambled for context, but it was too late. One line cut through all the noise. "Success does not require shame," Traoré said. "It's one thing to call yourself British, it's another to spit on the land that gave you breath." And then, he delivered the knockout. "You say Nigeria is backward. Do you remember who wiped your nose when you had malaria? A Nigerian nurse. Who taught you math in Surulere? A Nigerian woman, chalk in one hand, baby on her back. You can pretend you were born in Buckingham Palace, but we remember you, when your shoes had holes and you borrowed textbooks." Badenoch snapped. "That's enough. You have no right to bring up my past. I serve my country. I am loyal to England." Traoré's response. "And yet, it was Nigeria that held you when the UK would have ignored you. That nursed you when England had no place for you. That gave your mother refuge when she had nothing. Tell me then, who truly made you?" The backlash was instant and fierce. On the streets of Essex, protesters gathered outside Badenoch's office, waving signs, "Proud to be African. We are not backward." Nigerian mothers recorded themselves in tears, saying, "He spoke for us. She insulted us all." Even intellectuals weighed in. A Nigerian professor wrote, "Kemi Badenoch's success isn't the problem. Her denial is." Ibrahim Traoré reminded the world, dignity is not optional. Traoré spoke the truth. But what followed was utter humiliation. If Captain Ibrahim Traoré's phone call was a thunderclap, what came next was a political earthquake. During a live BBC interview, Kemi Badenoch was asked point blank, "Do you stand by your statement that Nigeria is a backward country?" She hesitated, her confidence shaken. I meant the government has problems." But the host pressed, "That's not what you said. You called the country backward." "I misspoke," she muttered. Then came the real blow. "Then why did the president of Burkina Faso feel the need to call you directly?" Silence. Deafening silence. Even in the halls of Westminster, whispers began. She messed up. She picked the wrong fight. That man embarrassed her, without raising his voice. But it wasn't over. Just as the headlines began to settle, Traoré struck again, calm, measured, and unapologetic. Effective immediately, Kemi Badenoch is banned from entering Burkina Faso until she issues a public apology to the people of Nigeria and the African continent. Gasps around the world. No African head of state had ever taken such a direct, uncompromising stand against a British political figure. Traoré just made history and headlines. Burkina Faso bans UK minister for insulting Africa. Ibrahim Traoré demands apology for Nigeria. Traoré versus Badenoch, the phone call that shook the diaspora. Inside 10 Downing Street, advisors were stunned. They had underestimated Traoré, a young African president they once dismissed as another populist firebrand. But now, they realized the truth. He was the voice of a generation, and not just in Burkina Faso. In Nigeria, the response was electric. From classrooms in Port Harcourt to radio shows in Abuja, from barbershops to university halls, young people replayed the call over and over. "He said what we couldn't." One TikTok clip went viral. "You can hold 2 flags in your heart," a Nigerian student said, "but don't burn one to wave the other." Then, a twist no one saw coming. An old video from 2003 surfaced. There was teenage Kemi Badenoch laughing in fluent Yoruba at a Lagos youth event. Proud, vibrant, rooted. The caption? So what changed? The pressure mounted. The UK government scrambled. Emergency meetings were held between Foreign Office officials and Burkina Faso's diplomats. A leaked exchange revealed the desperation. "Can we smooth this over?" "Only if Badenoch apologizes." "She won't." "Then Traoré won't back down." Then, Traoré addressed thousands at the Pan-African Youth Congress in Ouagadougou. His voice was steady, his message unforgettable. When someone denies their roots, they aren't just turning away. They're spitting in the face of every child still living that truth. To call Nigeria backward is to insult the mother who cooks by candlelight to send her child to school. To insult Burkina Faso, Ghana, Kenya, the Congo, all of us who build with fire in our chests and hunger in our bones. The crowd roared. Tears flowed. Signs rose into the air. "Africa is my honor. Not backward. Building. Thank you, Traoré." Then, the final crack in Badenoch's image came, not from a politician, but from her past. Adaora, a childhood friend from Lagos, appeared on national TV. "We wrote poems about Nigeria together. Kemi once told me she wanted to grow up and make Nigeria proud abroad, and now she acts like we never existed." The clip went viral. Photos of Badenoch dancing in a school uniform on Nigerian Cultural Day flooded the internet. The caption under one? "You forgot us, but we remember you." By week's end, Badenoch's team was in full crisis mode. Interviews canceled. Donors vanished. MPs distanced themselves. She stayed defiant on camera, but behind the scenes, she was crumbling. Meanwhile, Traoré, calm, focused, already onto his next summit. What he didn't know yet was that a British intelligence memo had quietly marked him as the most influential African leader under 40, and perhaps the most unpredictable. And in the shadows, plans were forming. There would soon be attempts to silence him. But for now, the world couldn't look away from the storm Badenoch had unleashed upon herself. Every time she tried to speak, the internet answered back, with memes, quotes, and tributes to Traoré. But what truly broke her wasn't the hashtags or the headlines. It was the cold silence from Nigerians in the UK. Community leaders returned her donations. Youth organizations revoked her invitations. Churches removed her photos from their walls. And then came the final blow. Her own relatives, back in Lagos, issued a public statement. We, the extended family of Kemi Badenoch, do not support her statements. We are proud Nigerians.
She had become an island, exiled by her own. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, something far bigger than politics was rising, a movement. Across the continent, especially among the youth, a wave of unity and pride began to swell. In cities like Ouagadougou, Lagos, Accra, and Nairobi, students began organizing mass rallies under a new banner, the Root Pride Movement. Their message was clear. You don't have to deny where you're from to succeed. Wearing t-shirts with both the UK and Nigerian flags, not as a celebration of colonization, but as a demand for dignity, they marched. They chanted. They belonged. When asked who inspired it all, a young Burkinabe student smiled and said, "Captain Ibrahim Traoré, he reminded us who we are." Then came the next twist in this spiraling saga. An African journalist published a leaked memo straight from the UK Foreign Office. In it, Kemi Badenoch had privately requested a diplomatic apology from Traoré, hoping to repair her reputation after the global backlash. Traoré's response? He laughed. And then he sent a letter, signed, sealed, and published for the world to read. I do not apologize for standing up for Africa's dignity. If speaking the truth costs me favor in London, so be it. I do not trade respect for diplomacy. It went viral. Again. But the moment that truly detonated across the global stage came when a former UK diplomat, speaking live on Al Jazeera, said the quiet part out loud. The truth is, many British leaders secretly share Badenoch's views. She just said it publicly. And they fear Traoré. He's everything they hoped African leaders would never become: proud, educated, unbought, and unafraid. That quote hit like a hammer. Badenoch's political future began to unravel. Her party's approval ratings plummeted among African voters in the UK. Youth organizations refused to endorse her for leadership. Nigerian lawyers in London filed a formal petition in Parliament demanding that her remarks be censured. And across the African continent, something unspoken crystallized. They had found a voice, a defender, a leader not just of a country, but of a cause. In quiet corners of Whitehall, a UK intelligence analyst reportedly issued a chilling internal memo. We may have just created a folk hero in West Africa. Ibrahim Traoré is no longer just a president, he's a symbol. But the UK establishment wasn't done yet. They started digging, looking for a scandal, a crack in Traoré's armor. And soon, they thought they had found it. The smear campaign began quietly. Then, like clockwork, British tabloids released a wave of sensational headlines. Burkina Faso's strongman under fire, Traoré accused of accepting undeclared funds. Is Africa's new hope hiding a dark side? There were no sources, no verified evidence, just grainy images, unnamed foreign entities, and bold innuendos. But Traoré was ready. He called an emergency press conference in Ouagadougou. The room was packed, not just with local media, but with global heavyweights from London, Paris, Washington, and Johannesburg.
At the podium, Traoré stood firm, steady as ever. He held up the so-called leaked documents and said with unwavering clarity, "These are fabrications, lies. They are not a threat to me. They are a threat to truth." Then, in a moment that turned the tables once again, he dropped his own bombshell. "I have personally requested a full investigation by Burkina Faso's Anti-Corruption Commission and by an independent African oversight panel. I invite international observers. Let them search. Let them dig. I have nothing to hide." The room fell silent. And then, slowly, applause began to spread. First in Ouagadougou, then on screens in Lagos, Bamako, Johannesburg, Nairobi. All across the continent, people rose to their feet. He stared directly into the camera and said, "I will not be brought down by shadows and whispers." And the world listened. But then came the twist that no one was ready for. A retired British intelligence officer, Paul Hargrave, formerly of MI6, shocked the world. In a bombshell video posted online, he looked straight into the camera and confessed, "There was a deliberate and coordinated campaign to tarnish Ibrahim Traoré's image. I've seen the internal memos. The real threat wasn't Traoré himself. It was his growing influence across Africa." The clip spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the smear campaign made perfect sense. The timing, the fabricated leaks, the media frenzy. This wasn't about corruption. This was about control. Or more specifically, the fear of losing it to a new, self-empowered Africa. And in the midst of the chaos, Kemi Badenoch, desperate to salvage her collapsing reputation, made one last move. She publicly challenged Ibrahim Traoré to a live televised debate, believing she could outtalk him, discredit him, outshine him. But Traoré's response was just one sentence. "I do not debate truth. I stand in it." That phrase became a rallying cry. And "stand in truth" trended for days. Traoré unshaken, African pride, dignity over diplomacy. Behind closed doors, the UK and France scrambled to de-escalate. Diplomats urged Traoré to tone it down. "Please," they said, "you're making this bigger than it needs to be." But Traoré stood firm. "I didn't start this," he said, "but I'll finish it. By reminding every African that we are not second class, we are not voiceless, and we are not ashamed of who we are." Then came a moment that moved an entire continent to tears. A 9-year-old Nigerian Ghanaian girl living in the UK, Amara, wrote a letter to Traoré. Her mother posted it online. "Dear Mr. Traoré, my mum is Nigerian and my dad is from Ghana. Sometimes kids laugh at me at school and say Africa is poor and dirty. But when I watched your video, I cried. You made me proud to be African. Thank you. Love, Amara." Traoré responded with a heartfelt video message. "Amara, I am proud of you. One day, when you speak, the world will listen. Never let anyone shame your roots. Your name is beautiful. Your people are beautiful. And your voice matters." Over 50 million views in 3 days. Africa and its diaspora felt seen. And just when people thought it couldn't get more surreal, the final thunderclap arrived. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee released its shortlist. Among the names were international doctors, climate advocates, peacekeepers, and then Captain Ibrahim Traoré, nominated for revitalizing African dignity and resisting neo-colonial manipulation through non-violent leadership. Even Traoré was caught off guard. He hadn't lobbied, he didn't campaign, but the world had been watching. Inside the UK? Kemi Badenoch exploded in private. Leaked reports said she was furious at the nomination. On social media, she vented, "So we reward populists now. What happened to serious leadership?" But once again, it backfired. Under her post, thousands clapped back. He didn't beg for respect. He earned it. You rejected your heritage. He defended it. Who are you to speak on African leadership? Then came the scenes no one predicted. In Nigeria, a country Traoré doesn't even lead, thousands marched. From Lagos to Kano, the people rallied in his support, not because he was Nigerian, but because he embodied everything they wished their own leaders stood for: courage, dignity, African pride. Placards read, "He made us proud to be African again." This Nobel is for all of us. The world was already watching. But then came the betrayal no one expected. A top official inside Nigeria's presidential office leaked a confidential letter that sent shockwaves across the continent. The letter, authored and signed by President Bola Tinubu himself, had been privately sent to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. Its contents? A request to reconsider Ibrahim Traoré's nomination, branding it divisive. The leak went viral. Outrage erupted. People from Abuja to Abidjan asked, how could a sitting African president oppose the recognition of a leader who had done nothing but uplift the continent's dignity? But Traoré? He remained silent. He didn't clap back. He didn't need to. Instead, the Nobel Committee released a rare public statement. Leadership is not measured by the number of allies one keeps, but by the number of uncomfortable truths one dares to speak. They hadn't yet named a winner, but the world already sensed the direction of history. And then, Traoré did something completely unexpected. He didn't host a press conference. He didn't call out critics. He walked into a primary school in Ouagadougou. There, in a humble classroom, he sat on the floor with a group of children, helping them draw maps of Africa. At one point, he asked, "If you could tell the world one thing about Africa, what would it be?" A little girl looked up and said gently, "Africa is not poor. We are just beginning." Traoré smiled. "Yes," he said, "and we will begin with truth." That clip, a quiet, unscripted moment, became the most watched African video of the year, racking up over 100 million views across platforms. And in London, a former UK MP spoke frankly on live TV. Kemi Badenoch's mistake wasn't just political, it was generational. The future belongs to leaders like Traoré, the ones you can't buy, the ones you can't break. That night, in the calm shadows of the presidential gardens, Ibrahim Traoré walked alone. No cameras, no press, no performance. Just a man carrying the weight of a continent. A man who never asked to be a symbol, but became one anyway. And whether the Nobel Peace Prize would ultimately bear his name or not, the truth was already inscribed into the fabric of African history. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had changed the game. Not just for Burkina Faso, not just for Nigeria, but for an entire continent rediscovering its voice and refusing to lower it ever again.